our January Network Café, which is also serving as the 2025 New Hampshire Agricultural Policy Forum. My name's Colleen Jennings. I work for the New Hampshire Food Alliance. I am the communications coordinator, and I'm again going to kind of do a little bit of introducing about the Food Alliance before we kind of kick things off into the policy world today. But again, please share your name and your pronouns if you'd like to share your organization that you represent in the chat as we get started. And I will share a little bit about our work here at the Food Alliance. Go to the next slide. Okay, what is the New Hampshire Food Alliance? We are a network of people, businesses, organizations, and communities working together to build a food system that works for all in New Hampshire. So the basics of what that means is all those organizations that you see it on the side of the slide and all the little dots on the map. These are all different organizations and businesses that we work with and work with each other to work towards a more thriving, fair, and sustainable local food system here in the Granite State. We do a lot of work together, we learn from each other, we collaborate, and we're all kind of working towards those common goals that we have as a food system. Next slide. One part of that work that we do together is this Network Café series. We host it every month, September through April, on the first Friday of each month from 12 to 1. And it's generally a space that we have to learn together and discuss these critical topics that we're facing as a food system right now. So really things that are top of mind for people, like policy, as the legislative session is starting very soon, or if it has not started already. And our Network Cafe series has always been a place that's inclusive, and it's an opportunity for everybody to learn and grow together in our food systems work. So you'll see on our agenda that's in the chat, and I'll keep posting that as well, you'll see a working agreement or community agreement that kind of outlines what is expected of you while you're here with us and what you can expect from us. So please take a look at that if you're feeling like you want a little intro back from the new year. Go to the next slide. So we do all this work, the Network Cafe series and many other things as a community outreach program of the University of New Hampshire at the Sustainability Institute. And as a part of the university, we share the university's dedication to diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. We believe that those 4 tenets are foundational to achieving our core educational mission as a program, but also the university's core educational mission. And it helps us embrace the many characteristics of our community members that make them uniquely themselves. So in that, I think it's important, especially during gatherings like this, that we continue to acknowledge the hardships the Indigenous communities in our region have faced by sharing a bit from the UNH Land, Water, and Life Acknowledgement. So I'm going to read a little bit from that now. As we all journey on the trail of life, we wish to acknowledge the spiritual and physical connection the Pennacook, Abenaki, and Wabanaki peoples have maintained to Indakina, homeland, which the University of New Hampshire community is honored to steward today. We also acknowledge the hardships they've continued to endure after the loss of unceded homelands and champion our responsibility to foster relationships and opportunities that strengthen the well-being of the Indigenous people who carry forward the traditions of their ancestors. Okay. Thank you all for joining me in that acknowledgement and just hearing a little bit about what our work is and kind of why we're all here today. I'm going to pass things over to our program director, Nicole Cardwell, who's going to introduce our speakers and just ground us a little bit in our policy forum today.
Thank you, Colleen. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. New year, new legislative session, and much to learn. So thank you for joining us today for the New Hampshire Agricultural Policy Forum for 2025. We're co-hosting that with the Monadnock Farm and Community Coalition, who started this tradition many years ago. And this tradition just brings together some of our policy-oriented colleagues and friends to talk through proposed legislation that they're keeping an eye on, and that presumably we may also want to keep an eye on as the weeks and months pass by ahead of us. So today we're joined by 4 fantastic guests. We have Teresa Walker here, who's with the Durham Agricultural Commission and is also a farm owner. Amanda Littleton with the Cheshire County Conservation District, Rob Johnson with the New Hampshire Farm Bureau, and Julie Davidson with NOFA New Hampshire. And we've asked them each to share what bills they're most closely watching right now or advocating for, why that bill is important and what it would do. And then lastly, where you can learn more if you're interested in getting involved. So we have 1 hour, and now probably 55 minutes. So this is sort of like a Ag Policy Forum lightning round. So let's give all of our speakers grace and gratitude for being here with us and trying to share this very heavy, wonky policy information in a short amount of time. Thank you for all of you for being here. And the first speaker, we're starting with Teresa Walker, and I'm really especially excited about this one because it's a direct output of the New Hampshire Food and Agriculture Strategic Plan, which I think many of you have been involved in or know about already. But we're in the middle, almost at the finish line of spearheading with support from the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, Markets, and Food. The strategic plan is not published yet. It'll be published the first week of March. We're in the final stretches. But before it's even published, and through that process, we've gathered 27 different teams of subject matter experts from across the state to talk about and synthesize their opinion and knowledge of different critical topics in the New Hampshire food system. And Representative Peter Bixby, who serves on the advisory committee and who I think is on this call today, asked us to round up some of those policy recs that were starting to come out in the briefs that were being developed as he considered what to put forth for the upcoming legislative session. And from that list, he was able to look through and research and with his own understanding, choose one to put forward. Teresa Walker was one of the subject matter experts on the land use planning team, writing the land use planning brief. And so she has agreed to join us here today to tell us a little bit about that bill, what it would do and why it is important in her opinion. So thank you so much, Teresa, and I will segue over to you.
Hey guys, thank you so much. I think thanks Representative Bixby for joining us, and thank you for taking up this idea that came out of the strategic planning sessions. Those of you who are familiar with your municipal master plan know that they are often documents that have these broad vision statements attached to them. And one thing I've learned over 40 years of being a regional planner in the Seacoast is that master plans often describe agriculture and farming in the past tense. Like it's something that we used to do, it's part of our rural heritage. It's often, farming is assigned kind of the scenic attribute, really not a food production or an economic development activity. And so I think this bill that we're talking about here is important because agriculture is something that should be called out in municipal master plans. If you're familiar with RSA 674:2, which is the master plan statute in New Hampshire, you'll see that master plan statements are really what give legal standing to local ordinances. And so enabling farm-friendly land use regulations is going to have a foundation in master plan statements. And so in the slide that's there, you'll see we talk about a couple of resources. That local regulation of agriculture toolkit that many of us worked on almost 10 years ago has a farm-friendly checklist inside it. I encourage people to visit that farm-friendly checklist because it really highlights why municipal master plans are key to enabling farming and agricultural activity. So the master plan, this statute would call out agriculture specifically as a land use activity. It doesn't currently. And I think once you do that, then we have the foundation to go forward with land use regulations which are more farm friendly. The food production and farmland preservation that is talked about at local levels is not often addressed in land use regulation ordinances. And right now we're seeing across the state those conversations about agritourism and how it's defined and how it can be regulated. So starting back again with that master plan and going forward with these statements that communities can make about how they want to support agriculture are really important. The town of Durham master plan was updated, I want to say 2015, and the Agricultural Commission, we quickly realized that agricultural resources were not discussed anywhere in that master plan. It was an activity that was talked about in a scenic quality, kind of rural heritage kind of way. And as many of you know, if you're familiar with our working landscape in Durham, there are a lot of farms here, not only small private ones like mine, but the state university system. So we felt it was really important to have a standalone chapter in the master plan that talked about agricultural resources, just like the master plan talked about water resources and air quality and energy and things like that. We like to say that, you know, if you eat, you're in, and we're all still eating. And so that master plan should be addressing that.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And just so you all know, I didn't say this, but you'll all get these slides. They're very content heavy slides. So you will be able to look at these afterwards along with the recording. We're going to save most questions for the end unless there are just quick clarifying ones, but I don't see any yet. So thank you so much, Teresa. And I think we're ready to move forward to Amanda.
Great. Thanks so much, Nicole. And thank you to the New Hampshire Food Alliance and Monadnock Farm and Community Coalition for hosting this event. So I'm with the Cheshire County Conservation District, but I'm here today representing the 10 county conservation districts in New Hampshire. And since the 40s, the conservation districts have worked with farms on conservation and responsible use of natural and agricultural resources. And to further this mission, in 2022, we launched a grant program for farmers, a direct-to-farm grant program to support them in building climate resilience through adaptation and mitigation measures. Now, this program was put together in response to the extreme weather events, the frequent and prolonged droughts, the increased pest pressures, and livestock heat stress that many farms have been telling us have been a real challenge for them and are all caused by our changing climate. So what this grant does is provides farms up to $10,000 to implement solutions to these challenges that they've identified as the most pressing. And the program really helps fill the gaps where federal and state programs have fallen short in meeting the needs of New Hampshire farmers. It puts farms in the driver's seat, allows them to innovate and create solutions based on the scale and unique characteristics of their farms. And grants are provided to farms in 4 categories: to help improve soil health, to help with water management, help with energy conservation and investments in renewable energy, as well as IPM and heat stress for livestock. Since it launched in 2022, the districts have made 95 grant awards for a total of $714,000 invested in New Hampshire farms. These have been in all 10 counties and represent about 58 towns, or 25% of New Hampshire municipalities in the state. And I think it's worth noting that 53% of the funds have gone to historically underserved, as the USDA puts it, which includes small and beginner farmers, as well as many other categories. So that's where we are. And the challenge that we have right now, and where this bill comes in, is that we have to sustain this program. It has been successful and in demand by farms in New Hampshire. But we want to make sure that we have enough funding and we can continue to do this year over year as farms' needs change. To date, this program has been 100% privately funded by foundations and donors. And it has also been leveraging a great deal of investment in dollars by New Hampshire farmers. So what we are doing is seeking support through the state of New Hampshire to leverage these private dollars and sustain this program, and bringing New Hampshire really in line with what other Northeast states are doing to make these supports, to give our farmers a level playing field. Representative Judy Aaron has sponsored House Bill 3080 to start this investment from the state of New Hampshire. It requests $50,000 a year from the state for the districts to implement this program. If successful, it would bring the state in as that third partner alongside private donors and farmers to help sustain this into the future. And these investments can make a big difference to help our farm businesses continue to thrive. So we seek your support for this legislation. If you're interested in learning more about it, we encourage you to reach out to your county conservation districts. They can give you an update on the bill's projects and any calls to action that are going to be happening. And I just think it's worth saying that if you are a farmer or know farms that you are working with, that we encourage you to reach out to the districts now as well, because they can help your farm on a submission of an application in the 2025 grant round, which are due February 1st. And there's currently $330,000 available on the table for this year. And the funds that we seek through this legislation would be starting for 2026. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And there is a couple quick questions in the chat that I think you answered. But Amanda, there's a question: how do farmers apply for this program? And then someone responded with a link. Applications are due February 1st. I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely true. They're due February 1st. They are applied to depending on the county that you're in. So you would apply directly to your county conservation district. And we do have the link here on the slide to where you can find all the contact information for those districts. And district staff can work with you on an application. You can share drafts with them. They can help you make it as competitive as possible going before February 1st.
Great. Thank you so much. What an incredible program. Okay, Rob, you're up. Rob has a lot to share with us, and he's going to start with some of his priorities for the New Hampshire Farm Bureau. And you'll see that there are many more listed on here. So he'll make his way through. And we've asked him we know that from previous conversations that the Farm Bureau is really particularly interested in keeping an eye on the state budget discussions. And so we've asked him to really give the group some insight on what he's looking for or keeping an eye on most closely there. Thanks, Rob.
Good afternoon, everybody. New Hampshire Farm Bureau, we're a federation of the 10 New Hampshire County Farm Bureau organizations, and our primary mission is to advocate for our member farmers and to educate whoever will listen about agriculture. And there are about, close to 70 bills that we've identified so far in this session that we're going to be keeping an eye on. Keep in mind that there are some that we just have seen a title. So we don't know a lot about them, and they may not be anything that we have a real interest, but that are on the watch list to start with. And I'm going to start on the slide you see there with the right to farm, and go from there. And then if we have time, go up to the labor and pesticide and fertilizer LSRs. And then I'm going to stick a little more time, spend a little more time on the bills in red, because those are our priority. So give it a start here. LSR 0542, exempting certain agricultural practices from municipal noise regulation. The municipalities have for years now have had the authority to regulate noise. Last session, House Bill 252 was passed into law. And what it did, it added language to that ability for the municipalities to regulate noise, stating that except for noise from activities related to farm agriculture and farming. So carve that out, but it also added language that exempted from that exemption agritourism. And the reason this bill has been filed is because I guess there's the concern that there may be municipalities that are looking at a language to get around that, saying, no, we're not regulating noise, we're regulating the public health or safety or some other term. So this is an attempt to tighten up that bill that was passed into law last year. Care of livestock. LSR, I can't see it on my screen here. It's too far down, but I'm forgetting it. But anyway, this is a bill that would change the animal cruelty statutes, RSA 644:8, as it applies to livestock, and that's key. This is focused on livestock, and this is a result of a situation that many of you may be aware of in Lee, where some goats were seized from a farmer who was working with Cooperative Extension dairy specialist. And this is legislation that it's sponsored by Representative Judy Aaron, the chair of the House Environment and Ag Committee. And we have also worked closely with Representative Comtois, who's the vice chair, Representative Bixby, who's the ranking member of the committee, along with the Commissioner of Agriculture and the state vet. And we hope we've got something that all of us can support and bring forward. And I guess the big picture of what it does, it provides some enhanced due process for animal owners, livestock owners in particular. Uh, some of the main things that it does, it makes clear in the statute that in order for livestock to be seized, that it has to be as much as often as possible the state veterinarian or his or her designee who sets the probable cause criteria for for prior to animals being taken. And it also currently the statute is it's unclear relative to this distinction in the statute between animals that are taking under a normal seizure situation and those that are taken under a temporary protective custody situation. And this makes clear in both situations that probable cause needs to be set by the state vet or his or her designee. What it also does currently, we believe strongly that prior to for animals to be seized, they must be seized by a public official, whether it be law enforcement or animal control officer. Current statute enables an officer of a licensed humane society, and there's been some problems there. It's people don't understand what when somebody shows up from a humane society, exactly what their standing is and such. And the couple situations where we've had issues that has been a problem. And again, we regardless, we believe strongly that it should be a public official. The change in the language also makes clear that that animal owners have the right to have their animal examined by a veterinarian of their choice at their expense. They currently do, but this makes clear that they do in both circumstances, whether it's a temporary taking or I guess you call a standard one. And there's also this other language. One I want to point out is that because of the situations that happened, that a confiscation without a person being charged is a theft by unauthorized taking. And again, because of these recent situations, we think that needs to be made clear.
Thanks, Rob.
I'm going to skip over the next one just so I have more time here on the state budget.
Mm-hmm.
State budget bills, there are really three of them that you consider. There's the standard bill, which funds state agencies. There's what is known as House Bill 2, which is known as the trailer bill, and some call it the Christmas tree bill, and that's kind of all the other add-ons that make it into the budget. And then there's House Bill 25, which is the capital budget. And the capital budget, it's interest to agricultures and things like, the university in particular. That's where the diagnostic lab that was built a few years ago went through the capital budget. The Spalding Hall, the life sciences building at the university did as well. So that can be important. But the big one this year is that back in a few years ago, 2022, I think, the legislature passed a statute that phased out the interest and dividends tax, which had been at 5% since the 1920s. And they then year and a half ago, so they accelerated it. So in the end as of January 1 of this year, there is no longer that interest and dividends tax revenue. And that the kind of hit we're talking about is in fiscal year 2024, that tax raised just under $185 million. So when we're looking at, and Farm Bill's looking at the budget, we're looking at it for the Department of Agriculture, Fish and Game, and the university in particular. And so just a small agency like the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, which from the general fund, they get, this federal money's coming in, but from the general fund, they're receiving just under $5 million. And in order to account for the loss in this interest and dividends tax, they've have in this budget have to absorb a nearly $1 million hit that they need to cut. And on top of that, as you all know, there was state employees received well-deserved pay raise of it was a 10% in the first year of the budget and 2% in the second year. So um, that's something we're going to be watching. I mean, the department wanted to focus on no employee layoffs, so they had to make some considerations. For example, the Ag Land Preservation Fund, which was getting in the ballpark, I think it's $250,000. That's no longer there. There was some money for grants for fairs, the Cost of Care Fund, which reimburses municipalities for seized animals. All those took a hit, and those line items are now in the $15,000 to $20,000 range in each year of the biennium. So that's something we're going to be watching. The other one that's important to us is fishing game. I mean, most of the fishing game revenue is comes out of federal funds or licenses and fees, that type of thing. But they still do receive, I believe it's in the one. It depends on the year, 1 to maybe 3 million. I'm kind of guessing there, but it's a relatively small amount compared to other agencies that they get out of the general fund. And you'll see some LSRs that relative to the general fund covering fishing game retirement and technology services, and also search and rescue. So that's something we're going to be watching. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the university budget, and of course our interest is in particular what funds available for the for cooperative extension, college of life sciences, agriculture, and the ag experiment station. So I know I'm about running out of time, Nicole, so I'll
No,
leave it at that.
you can have a little extra. You can, Teresa and Amanda were so quick, and you're covering a lot of really important stuff here.
Okay.
So could you tell me, Rob, that's all really helpful. I just want to ask about the timeline for all this, and if how, I guess we have, over 80, we have 85 people here. How can folks get involved in this?
Yeah, the state budget you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in, I believe it was June, the commissioner went before the governor, which would mean the governor until today or tomorrow, Governor Sununu, and presented his budget with taking into consideration the governor's request to make cuts in line with the budget. So they made that presentation, and I guess the next item will be the new governor, Governor Aya, will be making her budget address in early February, and shortly after that, the governor will put together a budget, and then the House will be putting together a budget, and there'll be basically the finance committee, House Finance Committee, and they'll be holding meetings, and there'll be a public hearing. My guess is it'll be early March that the House will hold their public hearing, so that's a time for input. There's also anybody out there that has a legislator, one of their legislators on the Finance Committee. That's a great person to talk with, have a conversation. Once the bill goes through the House, the crossover date is April 10th, I believe. That's when all House bills need to be the Senate, all Senate bills need to be the House. So the bill will be out of the House by that crossover date, April 10th. That'll be the big bill, last bill they'll be dealing with. Then the process starts all over in the Senate. Probably late April, 1st of May, early May, the Senate will hold a hearing on the budget, and that's where folks need to get involved. If they've got a senator on the Finance Committee, that's important. It's always great for representatives to hear directly from their constituents on things. And then they'll pass a budget, and this past budget actually didn't need to go to conference committee. They were able to agree. That may happen again. If not, then there'll be a conference committee where the House and Senate will iron out their differences, and we've got to get a budget signed and in effect by July 1.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. We'll try to call out those key dates for the public hearing, likely early March. Is a really key time to weigh in. And then if any of your representatives are on the House Finance Committee or either Finance Committee, a really important place to weigh in. And
and
okay, so we have a little bit of legal time, not too much. Is there anything else, Rob, that you wanted to call out from your lists here?
well, I was just going to touch on while we're staying on the budget for a second. The legislation that Amanda has talked about, that made what the House will tend to do. They'll deal with the budget, and there'll be a whole slew of requests. They'll hold off on those, and there's what I mentioned earlier, the trailer bill. A lot of bills like that will get into the trailer bill. So you want to pay attention to the organizations you're a member of and all, and it may be tacked into that. So that's just something that to keep an eye on. That if it doesn't get into House Bill 1, the regular budget, in all likelihood it would if it has support and all, it would get tucked into House Bill 2. Give you an example, like last session, the Department of Agriculture receives some computer network and such for their record keeping, and all that went through the budget. There was some money that was farmers market, the WIC farmers market nutrition program, that came out, was in House Bill 2, things like that.
And can you take things away in House Bill 2 or just add them?
You can take things away. Yeah, I think for I don't know how many years now they've discontinued revenue sharing with the municipalities through the House Bill 2.
Okay.
That's a vehicle. There's all kinds of name changes, all kinds of things that get tucked in there.
Okay. Representative Bixby, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just a, a little clarification about the relationship between House Bill 1 and House Bill 2. So House Bill 1 has all of the information about the actual numbers and very little information about what they do. And House Bill 2 has has essentially the information about how how the numbers in House Bill 1 get applied to actual law. The other thing is that House Bill 2 makes changes to statute and changes to chapter law. Chapter law is sort of like the stuff that is ongoing and changes quickly. Statute law is what is permanently on the books. So House Bill 2 makes changes to the laws that make it possible to actually use the money. So an example of this was last term in House Bill 1 had the money for an associate director for the Department of Agriculture, and they somehow the ball got dropped and they didn't put the authorization for that associate director in House Bill 2. So we couldn't actually hire one until there had been another bill passed to authorize that. So the actual authorization to use the money comes in House Bill 2. House Bill 2 is also used to make a certain number of law changes that probably ought to be just regular bills, but aren't. Another thing that happens is that with the budget is that there are sometimes regular bills, and the LSR 0380, which is providing money for the conservation districts, is one that this might happen with. That bill, when that becomes a bill, it will probably come first to our committee and we'll pass it as a bill, and then it will go to House Finance. And what they will probably do is retain the bill and then put it into the budget as a line item in the budget. So there are a certain number of independent bills that spend money that end up going into the budget, and then it looks like the bill was killed, but in fact, it's in the budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. That's very helpful. All right, so I want to reiterate for all the folks that are not so intimately involved in all this that the state budget bill's in the bottom. I'm taking away, there's 3, maybe you all know this, not 4 though. It's the HB 1-A, and then the second one, HB 2FNAL, is the Christmas tree bill, Rob?
Trailer bill, yeah.
Trailer bill. And then HB 25A is the capital budget. And that's where the university is, and other things, but the agencies are mostly in one.
It's not where the university is. It's just like capital improvements at the university would be the capital budget. Yeah.
Thank you.
And those numbers I have there, those are the normal numbers. They aren't out yet, but over the recent years, that's what each one of them has been numbered at.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rob. That was really, and Representative Bixby as well. That was really helpful and informative. And I think let's continue on to Julie, and then we'll have time at the end for questions or elaborations. Thank you. Julie.
Great. Thank you. Thanks to our hosts. And I also want to thank our colleagues today here, Teresa, Amanda, and Rob, for their really important work. It's great to hear what bills you're supporting, and that was super informative, Rob. For those of you who don't know, the Northeast Organic Farming Association, otherwise known as NOFA, is a membership-based association dedicated to promoting organic, regenerative, and ecologically sound farming, gardening, eating, and land care practices for healthy communities. So I want to begin by acquainting everyone with some background on NOFA's advocacy and policy work. NOFA strives to support a resilient and equitable food system by strengthening supports for local agriculture, promoting sustainable farming practices, protects our food, land, and water from toxins while implementing responsible climate solutions. So today I'll be highlighting a few of the bills that help advance these policy goals. We're not providing a comprehensive list of bills we are monitoring due to time limits, so please reach out to NOFA New Hampshire to learn more and get involved in our work. The first bills that we want to highlight include House Bill 0568 that would establish a committee to review procurement policies from farms using sustainable and organic practices. Thanks to Representative Bixby for being the prime sponsor of the bill. We wanted to support a bill like this because we hear first and foremost from farmers that they need more local consumption of food to support their farm viability. And it builds off the growing value-based and good food procurement legislation that is being adopted in numerous states across the country, like the Colorado Department of Ag. They have established tax credits for retailers sourcing from regenerative farms. Boston has also established good food purchasing policy, and then there is the Federal Food as Medicine Procurement Bill. We also support House Bill 0380, which would, as Amanda pointed to, establish funding for the New Hampshire Association of Climate, or a New Hampshire Association of Conservation Districts Climate Resilience Fund. Amanda has already reviewed this, but I want to bring it up again just to underscore the important work that's being done with this fund. And it's essential to helping farms adapt to the ongoing and accelerating impacts of climate change. Related, we are also monitoring the bill on natural disaster funding for possible implications on agricultural businesses. Some of the other bills that we are looking at are we want to prioritize clean air, water, and healthy environment and prevent further pollution like PFAS contaminations on our lands. We have seen devastating effects of farmland and food products and PFAS contamination. PFAS is known to cause cancer along with other toxic chemicals. We also support efforts to ensure human and planetary health are prioritized over corporations' profits. So House Bill 0027 would allow victims to seek damages from PFAS contamination by removing the statute of limitations that currently is present, preventing victims from seeking relief. We have been monitoring the implications of the carbon credit projects taking root in New Hampshire as well. Carbon markets dubbed by critics as false solutions to climate change because they delay real action in mitigating emissions and have resulted in land grabbing and displacement of local communities across the globe. The recent acquisition of Connecticut Lake's headwaters forest by Aurora Sustainable Land demonstrates this threat. Their carbon credit development prioritizes corporate profits over northern New Hampshire community needs. This pattern could spread to our state's agricultural lands as well. So House Bill 0619 would prevent the use of carbon credit programs on public lands. So we are monitoring that. And we are also monitoring House Bill 0100 that would allow communities to tax standing timber and land use for carbon sequestration. This is a complex issue, and there are various implications of this bill for both agriculture and communities, especially in towns in the North Country that are projected to have steep revenue losses due to the carbon credit project of Aurora Sustainable Lands. So instead of carbon markets, we'd like to point to state legislation previously mentioned, or I haven't mentioned actually yet, is 0028. A bill like this could lead to direct regulation of corporate emissions and could establish revenue either from fines or taxes from entities that pollute. This revenue could be allocated to funds like the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Districts Climate Resilience Fund. This would return revenue earned through extraction and degradation of our natural resources directly to the farmers and land stewards who are on the front lines of repairing this damage. This more direct approach benefits farmers rather than brokers of carbon market programs, which burden them with complex compliance and financial risk while providing minimal returns, or even some cases, farmers are losing money on these deals.
Julie,
Yeah.
can I pause you just for one moment before we go into the food and medicinal businesses section and just see Representative Bixby, did you want to add something to what Julie was saying?
I just wanted to make a quick note. The numbers that are listed are LSR numbers, and when they get published as bills, they'll have different numbers. So anything that's on this list isn't going to be HB whatever it is on the list. It'll be the number will be something different because of the way that the Office of Legislative Services does their bill making. So don't depend on these numbers to find the content. Do a search once the bills are just beginning to be published. Once they're published, they'll be accessible on the state court website, and you can do a search for something in the title, for words in the title, to find the actual content of the bill. Or you can search on the sponsor.
Thank you. That's very helpful to know.
Yeah, and in the next slide, we do have a link to Legiscan where you can follow along with these bills. I had a hard time finding, are they LSR stills or House bills? So thanks for clarifying that. So, and the other point I want to make is we advocate for food sovereignty by supporting home-based cottage food industries to increase equitable access to commercial food production. This is important because requirements for commercial kitchens can create access barriers through high cost and capital needs. So we have listed some of the homestead bills. In fact, Rob's list had a more extensive listing of relative homestead bills. So I would check out his slides as well. But expanding cottage industry and cannabis cultivation laws would allow people to produce food commercially from home and grow medicine affordably, and reducing dependence on expensive pharmaceuticals. A few points I want to make that are not included in our list of bills, because sometimes what's just as important as what we're not seeing is we want to draw attention to housing and DEI initiatives. What's missing is proposed legislation that supports anti-corporate farming and housing laws to prevent corporations from buying up farmland and housing. That is happening at a rapidly accelerating rate. And we're also opposed to the state dismantling the DEI initiatives in various departments. We need to invest in expanding, not eliminating this essential work. If we could go to the next slide, please. Can you go to just the next slide if you have it up there? Oh, there you go. Thank you. So the bill that we wanted to highlight, it's actually a resolution introduced by Representative Nicholas Germana, who is actually on the call here today. And what this bill would do would create a resolution, not a law or constitutional amendment. It would formally recognize that New Hampshire residents have fundamental rights to clean air, water, and a healthy environment. It establishes an official position linking environmental rights to fundamental rights like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it sends a clear, why is it important? It sends a clear message about our New Hampshire values regarding environmental protection. It establishes environmental rights as fundamental rights. And it could influence future court decisions, perhaps legal interpretations, and provide a foundation for future environmental legislation and regulations in the states. And it also aligns with a growing movement of states that are recognizing environmental rights as fundamental rights. There's green amendments, the rights of nature that are being implemented. There was a state in Virginia, Chesapeake Bay, some indigenous tribes successfully passed that. So we definitely support and appreciate the work that Representative Nicholas has brought to bringing attention to this important issue in our state. And it sets the groundwork for ensuring that our land, air, and water are clean, healthy, and protected, not only for our current use of healthy food production, but for future generations. And so with that, I will close, but on this slide, if you want to get in touch or learn more, here's contact information. So again, appreciate everyone here today on the call and the work that you're all doing to support healthy food farming systems in our state.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you, everyone. If you have questions, please start adding them into the chat or feel free to raise your hand. While you're doing that, I just want to acknowledge that Assistant Commissioner Josh Marshall is on the call with us here. I don't know if he has anything he wants to add. Nope. Okay. And let's see, Colleen, do you have any questions over there?
Let's see. There's Molly Swanson just came in with a question for Nick and Julie. Is this resolution similar to the court case that was won in Montana by young people about their rights in the state constitution?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if Nick wants to address that. I'm vaguely familiar with that, but I think there are definitely some connections to that. And I know last legislative session, there was, I believe, an amendment that Nick introduced, but
yeah, I thank you. Yeah, I'd be happy to address that. Last session, Tim Horrigan brought forward a constitutional amendment that was, I think, verbatim, maybe what was from that Montana Constitution. And I gave the speech for that on the floor. It didn't pass. It needs a supermajority, a constitutional amendment anyway. And there were quite a few of my colleagues on the other side afterwards who said to me, well, you know, I think it's a great idea, but I'm worried about what the implications would be in terms of lawsuits, et cetera. So one of the reasons I'm bringing forward as a resolution this time is to kind of call them out in a way and to say, okay, well, you know, a resolution is a statement of values. And so, you know, last time you said you were in favor of it. So what I went with was actually a simpler, a very straightforward, simple statement that focuses on the notion that the right to clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment is fundamental actually to all of our other rights. So it's the language in resolution that I put forward is not taken from the Montana Constitution. It's just a fairly simple fundamental statement.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, we have Representative Bixby would you like to add something?
Yeah, just a little bit of a caveat on that. A resolution does not create enough of a basis to have a lawsuit like they did in Montana. So this is more it's more a statement of values. It does not have a lot of legal teeth, but it is a good first step to say, okay, this is what we believe.
Great. Mary, are you adding something related to that?
No.
Okay.
Different question. When you're
Okay,
ready.
you have a question. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, I'm wondering if I could hear more about the right to farm, the LSR 0542 exempting certain agricultural practices from municipal noise regulation. Could you explain that more? Do they mean, are they specifically saying like machinery noise, or is this for agritourism that has entertainment? How is that really, can you flesh that out a little bit on what is attempted there with that?
Rob, I think that one's for you.
Yeah, I can read the statute, RSA 31:39, which is municipal power to make bylaws. There's a number of um, things that municipalities can regulate. And under N, they can regulate noise. And I'll read you the language. It says regulating noise, except that no, in quotes, quiet hours ordinance or bylaw that attempt to regulate noise from activities related to farms, agriculture, and farming as defined in RSA 21:34-A shall be enforceable within a town. And 2134A defines farm agriculture and farming in statute. Then the section goes on to read, this exemption shall not apply to agritourism as it is defined in RSA 21:34-A.
So they're saying that that agriculture is an exemption to the rule, but agritourism is an exemption to the exemption.
Correct. Correct. The intent, I mean, this hasn't been, to my knowledge, hasn't been tried anywhere in a court of law, but I think the intent is to prohibit the regulation of standard agricultural practices, though those may be defined differently by different people, but the use of the tractor in the field to make hay or to spread manure, things like that. As I've mentioned to some of our members, I mean, it's until somebody wants to start to push it and maybe a little unreasonable with using their equipment at ungodly hours, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I thought I got to tell you, it was Barbara Comtois that introduced this bill. Representative Barbara Comtois introduced this bill last year. And initially, when she first came to me and talked about it, I told her it didn't have a shot in heck. This wasn't gonna. And in the end, it did change from her initial introduction. She did carve out the agritourism piece.
And I don't know if you can see Representative Comtois is on the call and raising her hand right now. So I assume that's why.
Yep.
But do you want to jump in, Representative?
Yes, and the reason I brought this bill forward is because some municipalities are already trying to use a disturbance of the peace instead of a quiet hours ordinance to go around the bill that was passed last year, and thus the reason for this bill. So they're already trying to do workarounds. And where agriculture is so essential to our state, we need to do everything we can to protect farmers. So I just wanted to let you know the reason this has come forward. There is actually things happening in communities to do a workaround.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For being here and for adding that and advocating.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. We only have a few minutes left, and I just wanted to add that and invite Tiffany Brewster to pipe in for a few moments here. Tiffany, as many of you know, is with New Hampshire Hunger Solutions and is a regular on the New Hampshire Agricultural Policy Forum. This year, the New Hampshire Hunger Solutions didn't have any legislation that was directly related to local agriculture and local food. And so with them, we decided to focus our limited time on bills that were really focused on local food and agriculture, but wanted to invite her in to just say a few words about their advocacy this year and how you can learn more. Tiffany, are you there?
Yes. Hi. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tiffany Brewster from New Hampshire Hunger Solutions. We have a list of bills that we're pursuing this legislative session that have to do or kind of running under the banner of Feed New Hampshire Kids. And so most of them make it easier for students to participate in the school meal programs. Very specifically, we'll be going after direct certification for Medicaid. So students that are enrolled in Medicaid that qualify for free or reduced meals will be directly certified, much the same way that they are already for SNAP. And the kind of hitch on that one could possibly be how the New Hampshire school funding formula relates to that, and how poverty levels are calculated for schools, and what that means for funding formula. So it could be a huge bill, but it not even related to a huge funding bill, not even necessarily related to the fact that we'll be feeding more children, but much more to the funding formula. Also some language that would require all schools to offer breakfast and lunch. Participating in the national school lunch and breakfast programs. Not all schools do offer those. Ensuring that children up to 200% of the federal poverty level can eat free lunch at school is another bill that we've pursued in previous years, and we're going after again this year. Requiring all schools to offer an online school meal application. So some schools are still only offering a paper version. And so this provides some funding to create a statewide online application that all schools can adopt and use. And then some bills that are related to school meal shaming and school debt, and giving some more information around the language about what alternative meals could potentially be offered, and actually not allowing that either. So lots of really interesting things. And the way we did tie it a little bit to agriculture and local access, in the sense that more students in school that are participating and eating the school lunch programs, the more money and income stream that makes available for schools to purchase local food, especially through programs like the Farm to School program, which is of course coming up with a pilot this year. So related, and also really important to be able to feed our New Hampshire kids. And I'll drop my email in the chat if you would like to connect. We also convene a monthly group called the New Hampshire Food Access Coalition that meets on the fourth Wednesday of the month at 10 for an hour and a half, that we specifically give updates on these legislation and more, as well as some other agriculture legislation, and work together toward that end.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Really hard to imagine something more important than making sure our children have food to eat. So, Mary, did you have a question or a comment?
I just, going back to that agritourism thing, I wondered if it's inherently a conflict already. Hang on, let me just see so the law says municipalities cannot adopt ordinances that conflict with the definition of agritourism. So I'm wondering if that is going to, the bill, or the right to farm thing that we talked about before, is already in conflict, because they're not allowed by law, by the previous law, to interfere with agritourism. Municipalities aren't allowed by the law to adopt ordinances that conflict with the definition of agritourism. And agritourism includes, and harvest festivals and things that might make noise after hours. I don't know. I'm just confused by what's going on there.
Representative Bixby, did you want to respond to Mary?
Yes. So the the way that it is set up right now, the municipalities can't, or the legislative intent of what we did last term was that municipalities can't make laws that impinge on regular farm activities, and that would include things like using a tractor. One of the key things is spraying, because spraying rigs can be noisy. You have to use those very early in the morning in order to not interfere with things like pollinators. So, so if you get complaints about using a tractor to do spraying early in the morning, then that would basically put a major roadblock in terms of agricultural operations. We exempted, or we made an exemption to the exemption for agritourism, because we felt that there are some aspects of agritourism that municipalities should be able to regulate. So you don't want to have like events that go on until 3 in the morning, because and without that exemption to the exemption, everything under the agriculture statute would have been allowed. So we said there's a carve out so that municipalities can put regulations on agritourism. And that was essentially a compromise that we made in order to get the bill to go through. I know there are complications with agritourism because it is, by definition, something that is ancillary to the main operation of the farm, and it is a point of contention with people neighboring farms about what extent agritourism should or should not take place. That is something that we felt should be resolved by the local government, and we encourage local governments to be as permissive as possible to agritourism without creating problems for neighbors. But it's a very difficult. It's difficult. There is nothing in state law that says that if the municipality makes a regulation about or an ordinance about so sort of the hours that that agritourism can happen, someone can't then sue the municipality and say, well, what the municipality's ordinance does is against state law. That's basically, if the municipality makes an ordinance about agritourism and limiting the hours of noise, that's something they have the right to do as a municipality.
And I'm Representative Bixby. That's so helpful. And I know this is a really thorny, complex topic. So I want to just pause there for a moment, because we take, as all of you know that are on the network cafes, we take ending on time very seriously. And just want to thank all of our speakers and the representatives on the call today, and Assistant Commissioner Marshall. Thank you for making the time to share all of this great information, and for doing so in such a clear, concise way. You all did a phenomenal job. I learned so much. Thank you for being here and for all of your advocacy. Take 30 seconds to fill out the evaluation for this event so we can continue to improve upon them in future months and years. And thank you for being here. Happy New Year to everyone. We will stick on for a few more minutes if anyone has questions for us. And this conversation, I'm sure, will continue in the year to come.
Thanks, everyone.